Hi, this is Sally Morgan, craniosacral therapist, physical therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Tristan, who is a Corgi. And we're here for, I believe it's episode 49 of Conversations with a Corgi. And we were going to be continuing our journey through wraps today, but then I realized it was Sunday, and I typically do something different on Sundays. And so we will continue our talk about wraps on Tuesday. But today we're going to talk about a dog that came into my life many years ago after I put this dog back on his pillow. Actually, so long ago, I don't think I had Tristan yet. And some of the lessons that this dog and his owner can teach us all about animals in our lives. I was surprised to get a call from a woman in Connecticut who had a dog that was, I believe it was an Italian Greyhound, and she also had some other pets, I think some cats, perhaps a rabbit. She had several animals, but she had had this dog for a very, very long time in her life, and he wasn't doing well at all. In fact, several vets and several, even an animal communicator, had told her to put the dog down, and she just couldn't do it. She had so many things going on in her life. She had lost her job. She had lost the place where she was living. She had only days to live in an apartment, and she didn't know what she was going to do with any area of her life. And the last thing she could face was losing her beloved dog of many, many years. I don't think I even need these. And so she reached out to me to see if I could help her with this really dilapidated dog. And I said, of course I can try to help your dog. Thinking the usual thing would happen, which is the dog would come. Typically, senior dogs stop walking or lose their balance and their alignment in their back and their hind end. What are you trying to get, Biscuit? And so I thought, well, with some cranial work and some orthopedic manipulation, this dog might come back and be okay. And so I expected to see a dog struggling, but not a dog in a desperate situation. And I've seen dogs, as I was describing, that don't walk well, that are doing okay, but that other vets and others have said are, Tristan is just, can you keep your buns on your pillow, honey? There we go. So I've seen dogs like that were, having trouble with their gait in the hind end, maybe crying or wincing a little bit when they get sit to stand. And I've heard from their owners that people have advised them to put the dog down. So that was what I was expecting to see when this little Italian Greyhound and her owner showed up. Well, she came to the door and she needed help getting the dog out of the car. Again, not unusual. I have had to go help lift dogs out. I've had dogs come in, carrying them on a blanket and leave walking after a treatment. So this poor dog was in the back of her car laying on a pee-pee pad and just so thin. And I couldn't see the dog really well from where I was outside of the car, but as we lifted the dog on a blanket and carried her into the house and laid her on the floor in the living room, I could see that this dog was in really bad shape, really bad shape. She was just so thin, and she had scald burns on her body from laying on her pee pad and not being kept clean, and she wasn't eating, and she just looked terrible. And I had to take a deep breath and do a few heart hugs. Tristan is really falling. There we go. I think I've got you on your pillow now, honey. So I had to take a few deep breaths and just really connect with this dog from a non-judgmental place. And non-judgmental is something that applies to T-Touch and craniosacral therapy, because the bottom line is, who am I to judge whether this animal should live or die, or whether this animal should be with this person, or whether what's happening to this animal is good or bad? I am just here to be of service to the animals and the people in their lives, and to do the best I can with what is brought to me. And so I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I had to take a deep breath, do a heart hug, and think, what is going on with this dog? Like, the dog looks so poorly that people would have thought the dog wouldn't make it even another few days. And, I did the work on the dog, and I talked to the person a lot. The person was very tearful. She had lost her job. She didn't know where she was going to live. She had a lot of animals she was responsible for. And this Italian Greyhound was so beloved by her. And, she just was in such terrible shape, and she was having a very hard time herself emotionally and really needed this dog. She was laying by the dog morning, noon, and night. So I gave her a lot of education about caring for the dog's scald wounds and cleaning them up. And I gave her a list of things to buy to help take care of the dog. I actually had to give her a super reduced price on the session because she was just in financial trouble as well as everything else that was not helping her situation. And the dog she had the spark in her eye that made me think this was not her time. And yet, a physical evaluation would have led you to believe otherwise. Her heart rate was very low. She just did not look good. So I used a pendulum and held it over her body to see which way her chakras were spinning and how well they were moving. And they weren't what I would call vital. They were spinning in clockwise direction, which is usually a sign of life force still in the animal and not leaving their body yet. And, she did not seem to be a dog on her way out based on what I was seeing with the pendulum. Usually you'll start to see the chakras close down one after the next as the animal gets closer to passing away. I wasn't seeing that with this greyhound. And I did cranial work on her. I used my skills doing orthopedic manipulation a little bit with her, but she was so slim and not walking that I did not think that was necessarily the best thing to do with her at the time. I didn't have tuning forks in my practice yet, and if I had had them, I certainly would have used them a lot with this dog because the gentle vibrational frequencies of tuning forks can really, really help a dog like this. And I showed the woman how to express the bladder, and also if she needed to have her poo expressed, I showed her how to do that, but that wasn't happening yet. And the dog wasn't paralyzed. She was just really dehydrated and in poor condition. So I recommended her to go to a local vet right by me, just up the street from my house, who usually, if I call in and say, what's going on, she's very cooperative and usually is able to help the animal almost immediately. And I said, bring the dog right up to that vet, get some IV fluids, and then take the dog home. So that's what we did. Of course, the vet called me and was a little cranky, like, are you kidding me? This dog is in such bad condition. And I said, I know, but the person doesn't live around here, and we just need to get the dog home with the person so that they can proceed with whatever they feel is the right thing to do. And she said, okay. So I did not hear back from the dog or the person for weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, almost 2 months go by, and I get a call from the woman, and she sounds completely different. She's happy, she's bright, she's perky, not crying, and she says, oh my God, you won't believe how much my life has changed since I last saw you. And I said, oh, what's going on? And she said, well, I've got a new apartment and I have a new job, and it's a really good job. I don't have an abusive boss yelling at me as I had with my old job. Things are really going well. I have all my animals with me. I was able to find a place where they can live. And my old dog just passed away yesterday. And I was surprised when she said that, because I thought that this dog, A, would not make it that long for sure, and B, that the dog had passed away yesterday, and she sounded so good. And she was calling to thank me for my help in not putting the dog down. And I had showed her how to use a pendulum to ask the dog questions, like, are you in pain? What, do you need water? And I showed her how to use an eyedropper to give the dog water, because hydration is really important when you've got an animal down and not looking well. And, I showed her how to use pureed food, again with the squirter, to give the dog nutrition. And it must have worked well, because the dog lasted that much longer. But the interesting thing about the story is not that the dog didn't die so soon, but that this dog actually lived another 2 months to support her owner all the way up until the day that the owner was settled and happy and, really had made some good changes in her life to proceed. She had, a good place to live. All of her other animals were healthy and able to stay with her. She was so afraid she would have to get rid of them because she wouldn't be able to find a pet-friendly place to live. And her entire life had turned around. And this blessed little dog had hung on that whole time to stay with his person in her time of need. And she recognized that. That's the most important thing. The woman knew that this dog had lived all this time, couple of months, to stay with her and to support her emotionally and be with her and to share their experience that they had had together for 12 or 13 years before the dog passed away. So it was a really remarkable wake-up call to me, a reminder of what animals do in our lives. It's just so remarkable in ways you don't expect. I mean, nobody would have predicted this dog would last another 2 months. And in fact, the dog, as often happens after a cranial treatment, was up and walking around a little bit the next day. And sometimes that happens and then they kind of go back downhill. They have like one day where they're sort of like a puppy again. And it's usually like a gift to the person of saying, I'm still here with you. This is what it used to be like. Always remember me this way. And then the animal will pass that night or the next day. And this dog did that, but she did not pass that night or the next day. That dog continued to stay with that woman throughout all of this time period. And in many ways, the dog really helped the woman because she had to take care of the dog. The dog was a very high maintenance situation at that point, and she really couldn't be left alone much. And she kept that woman from plummeting into deep despair and depression because the woman had to get up and feed that dog and take care of that dog and clean up after the dog and figure out ways to afford the pee-pee pads and things that she needed for the dog, as she was also strategizing about how to get a job and how to get a place to live. So that dog is like a little miracle in this person's life. I mean, she had that dog 10, 12 years before this happened, and yet this amazing experience for the two of them became, a wonderful time in the last 2 months of their time together. And it would have been so terrible for that woman to have lost that dog when all of these people were saying, put the dog down. And it's a lesson to us, so many times we feel like our dogs are in pain and they're not doing well, and we say, oh, it's not fair to them. But in fact, I do a lot of hospice work with animals, and it has been shown to me over and over again how important it is to honor their passing in the time that seems to be right for them. And it's not always what we predict. As I said, this dog lived 2 more months, seemingly impossible. But, was it just on spirit alone? Did the dog improve a lot with the suggestions I gave this woman enough to last that much longer? I don't really know for sure, but I do know I've had many, many animal experiences like this where there is an obvious reason in the end when the animal passes about why they waited so long or why they passed at that point. And we take that wisdom away from them if we have to put them down sooner. Now, of course, there are times when your animal really is suffering, when they have cancer or they have a traumatic injury, and you need to put them down. And it is a terrible, terrible situation for a person when that happens and for the animal. But in some cases, you don't have to do that. And many vets now are rethinking the whole process of putting animals down. And there are places like Blessed Monkey's House in New Jersey where senior dogs go to live out their final days, even if they need a lot of maintenance and care. Some people just can't afford the time and the money to take care of a senior dog with a lot of health problems. And people like Michelle at Monkey's House are able to give those dogs the care that their owners couldn't. And so this is just a lesson to look at the many gifts animals have in their lives for us and the remarkable bond that people share with their dogs. This dog did an amazing thing for this woman, staying with her in what was really the darkest time of her life. She was about 33. She had had some experience to be able to cope with such a upheaval in her life, but she had no support except her animals. And this wonderful dog was really a blessing for her. I have not heard from her in all these years since then. It's probably been 20 years since this happened. And I still think about this dog and the wonderful gift that she gave this person of the last 2 months of her life to support her and guide her through her own transitions in her life. So take a moment today and perhaps do a heart hug to think about a dog in your own life that has shared some special experiences with you, or an animal that you know of that might not even have been your pet, who has done something really wonderful for a person or a dog in their life. And to do a heart hug, you just cross your hands over your heart and you just see if it feels better to go in a clockwise or a counterclockwise circle. Of course, on this camera, it's all backwards. And then you take a deep breath and you're imagining the face of a clock starting at the 6, going all the way around and back to the 9, so you're making a circle and a quarter. And you inhale as you go around the circle and exhale as you come down. And it's nice to close your eyes and imagine that animal that you want to connect with, send love to, or gratitude. And you just do 1 1/4 circles at a time, and you can do several. Animals have so many wonderful lessons for us, and I look forward to sharing more of these kinds of stories with you on the Sundays in the future. And look to your own animal today. It's getting warmer here again. It was 80 yesterday. It's only going to be 67 today. But I once again found a tick on the sofa crawling around, probably from me, not Tristan. He hasn't been on the sofa, and he is covered with cedar. He's quite the stinky little cedar guy right now, so I don't think anything's climbing on him, at least until the cedar wears off. So be careful out there with the ticks. They are really, really hungry this year. And another reminder, it's only about 10 days before I leave to go to Maryland for the Linda Tellington T-Touch course in Rockville. And it is a wonderful opportunity, as I've said before, to learn from the woman who developed this amazing work and has helped so many people and animals around the world. It's a 6-day course. Tristan and I will be there. There's still some openings in the class, and you are welcome to bring your pet, whether it be a dog, a cat, or a rabbit. Bring your friends, and it's a wonderful opportunity to work with Linda. It's a beautiful area, many hotel prices and Airbnbs around, and all kinds of different food. I only eat organic vegetarian food, and there's a fabulous health food store near there where I get lots of my lunches and takeout dinners. And it's just at a beautiful facility. So please consider coming to that class, even though it's a short ways away, 10 days. And you can go on the T-Touch website, ttouch.com, to find out more information. And what else do I have coming up? That's about it. We have a pretty quiet week this week, thankfully. I will not be doing conversations with a Corgi on Monday and Wednesday this week because of my obligations as an educator in my other capacity. And I'm hoping to do Facebook Lives daily. I don't know at what time, but during that T-Touch course, I'm hoping to have Linda do one with me, and certainly Pam, who is organizing the class. And I'd love to get some of the people in the group to share their experiences being in a T-Touch class and let you know how much fun it is, so that perhaps you will sign up for a T-Touch class in the future. And I have to see what people are saying here, so that means I have to put my glasses on. Good morning. We're still spreading the word that you're live. Yes, in case you tuned in on time today, I got kicked off air right after I was talking because we lost our internet connection. There is still some continuing problem with internet on the entire East Coast, and part of it is from the storms that we've been having. I don't know if you've heard, there's been some terrible storms in Texas, a tornado overnight. So it's hard to get connected and stay connected. So I just deleted that beginning video and went with this one. So nice to see you, Pat, and everyone else. And I will be back on Tuesday, where we will continue discussing some of the T-Touch wraps. And excuse me, I will let you know how it went with Tristan in the car wearing his wrap yesterday when we went for our author talk. So this is Sally Morgan and a sleepy Tristan Corgi who's still falling off of his pillow. He says, I take exception to that. He wants to go have a nap. It was a long day yesterday. And we will be back on Tuesday for another episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And with any luck, we can, between now and then, record some special music that will be for Conversations with a Corgi. Thanks for joining us.